Hey, Sarah. Oh,
Yes.
lest I forget. I tried to look at the staff update part of the dashboard that we talked about before.
Yes.
And it still says that it's restricted, and I sent in a request for access a couple, maybe yesterday or the day before. But yeah, so it's still not really functional.
Okay, thank you for letting me know. I'll double check with Yen on what happened there, and we might call you to troubleshoot that live.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you for letting me know. I'm sorry that's frustrating. If you want a snapshot in the meantime, I can send that to you too.
No, it's just it's just a general issue, not a specific one.
If you could send instructions to the rest of us too. I had the same issue as Helen when I tried to look at it.
Can I ask if you tried to look at it from the board meeting dashboard, so this month's June board meeting dashboard, or if you tried to look at it from the board portal link, because it should be on both. Do you remember? If
Well,
not, that's okay.
It's whatever Leah sent me yesterday or the day before, because I don't know. Yeah, the whole access thing is an issue.
Okay, we can follow up. Thank you.
We have about 1 minute here, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, 6:30. Are we recording, Sarah?
We're recording.
Okay, welcome everyone. I'd like to call the June 28th, 2022 board meeting of the Thurston Conservation District Board of Supervisors to order. We are recording this, as we just mentioned. For the record, the folks we have here with us at this point, we have Supervisors Helen Wheatley and Doug Rushton. We have myself, TJ Johnson, the chair. We have our staff members, Executive Director Sarah Moorhead, staff member Leah Kellogg. We have our legal counsel, Ben Cushman, and it looks like we also have Jean Fike from the State Conservation Commission and Elena Reynolds from the Department of Ecology. So welcome everyone for being here. Thank you. First thing up on our agenda tonight is an agenda review. We made a couple of changes to our agenda coming out of the work session earlier. Are there any additional changes from either board or staff? Okay, if not, I will entertain a motion to approve our agenda.
So moved.
It's been moved by Helen.
Second.
Seconded by Doug. We will vote on the agenda. Helen?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We've approved our agenda. That moves us to consent. We have 2 items on consent tonight. The first is the May 24th, 2022 board meeting session work session and board meeting minutes. And secondly, which incidentally we looked at and amended in our work session earlier. And then secondly, we have the June 2022 financial report. I would take a motion at this point on consent agenda.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, moved by Doug. Is there a second?
Second.
By Helen. This is easy with 3 people. You both get to make motions all night. So we'll vote on consent. Doug?
Aye.
Ellen?
I,
Chair votes aye. We've approved our consent agenda. That moves us then to public comment. This is the point at which any member of the public can address the board for up to 3 minutes on a topic relevant to the district and its business. I don't believe we have anyone from the public here tonight, but I will ask at this point, is there anyone that wishes to make public comment? Hear none. So we will close public comment and move to item 5, our partner reports. The first up here is NRCS, and I see Sarah's name on this one this month. You're not leaving us for NRCS, are you, Sarah?
Not happening. I am here as a proxy on behalf of NRCS only to share a very exciting update, which is that they have made a selection to fill Robin Buckingham's position in our local Olympia office. I have heard recently that that individual should be here mid-July, has gone through all of the paperwork and vetting processes in order to do so, is relocating right now, and is a very experienced individual. It sounds like the credentials are great, and so we're really excited to welcome a new field office staff member mid-July, and we'll make that connection to see if we can't get them out and in front of the board, if not at the July meeting, at the August one, as they're part of that onboarding process. So I think that was an exciting update that position has been filled.
Can I make a comment, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, we're having a tour with Chris Pettit. If we could pair this new person with that, that might be a good stroke to kill. Well, that's not a good analogy, to make 2 people more familiar with our district.
Point. And following up on that point about the chair, the tour with Chris Pettit, which we knew about, it sounds like dates are still in the works on that. Is there any additional information on that?
Other than we're getting through this end of fiscal year, beginning of a new fiscal year, excuse me, for the state. So June has just been a challenging month to schedule. We're gonna look back out again, into July and early August for that tour. I spoke with Chris at Wade. He's extremely excited to get out in the field as soon as he can. So it's a priority for him, and so we want to make it happen soon. I just want to reconfirm the majority of our board shared interest in that opportunity. I just want to confirm that mid-July to early August timeframe might work for folks. I know that TJ, you have a vacation in there. If it's okay with you, I'll send out yet another doodle poll, because I want to make sure that board members that would like to go out and visit these sites and connect with the individuals on this tour have that opportunity. I think that's a pretty high priority, so that the commission can also hear this information directly from our board. So that's my mode of operation moving forward, is that you'll see a doodle poll again, I apologize. But we have a lot of folks that we're scheduling here, and so we'll see those dates. Are there any days of the week or times of the day that I should just avoid even putting in that poll?
From my perspective, it would be pretty tough to do it on a Monday, Wednesday, or a Thursday. Those are our CSA days, and I can't really get off the farm those days. And I really do want to participate in that. But also, that said, if it works for everybody else and not me, that's just how it's got to be. But I'll try to be as flexible as I can. But those days will be tough. Okay. Thank you, Sarah.
And this is Doug. I've got the NACD meeting from the 12th to the 20th, and also another NACD meeting from the 1st of August through, for the 31st of July through the 4th of August. but I am having lunch with Chris Pettit on the 6th.
Based on what you just said, Doug, and thinking about my own schedule, a tour scheduled after August 4th would be better for me as well.
We can do that.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Let's then move on to our second report here, Department of Ecology. We have Elena with us tonight. Hello.
Good evening, everybody. I just wanted to make a quick noise check. Can you all hear me? Great. So I have a quick little slew of updates for you. No big developments in any way. But number one, that our Terry Hussman account grant have gone out this past month. And so Terry Hussman accounts is a pot of money that we have available for folks that come from penalties issued for pollution to waters of the state. So this is something that comes up every year. It varies from year to year because of the nature of how that accumulates, but those should come out next year. And we've had a fair number of construction stormwater penalties go out. So it looks like that pot will be fairly robust again this coming year. Secondly, we'd like to just share that Ecology has a beach program and that's in all caps, and where recreational beaches are monitored for healthy swimming from Memorial Day to Labor Day. And that specific information and links associated will be in our newsletter that will come out. I'm giving you a little preview, by the way, in this upcoming week. Finally, our CAFO, or Concentrated Animal Feeding Operations permit draft is out for public comment. And again, links and associated information will be put out in that newsletter as well. It's more of a monthly update rather than a newsletter, excuse me. And for those of you who are not aware, a permit is required for agricultural operations that confine livestock for long periods of time and discharge to waters of the state, pollutions associated. So a confined animal feeding operation, or CAFO permit, requires facilities to implement specific pollution prevention practices in order to protect water quality. That comment period will be available for public review from June 22nd through August 3rd. That's all I have for you all at this time. No specific sites of concern, etc. But if you have any questions, please feel free.
I have one quick question on the CAFO. Is there a minimum size threshold or period of holding that requires a permit? Or are there some entities that fall below a permit threshold?
Yeah, so 40 days or more, and there's a discharge to waters of the state.
So 40 days or more, regardless of the number of animals?
I believe so, yes. But the more important part, I've asked this a few times as well. The more important part of that is the discharge of waters to the state. So if an operation is discharging to waters of the state, a permit will be required or some other actions associated.
Okay, thank you. Anything further for Elena? Okay, thanks for being here. Thanks for the update. See you next time.
Yes, thank you.
Moving to partner report C, we have State Conservation Commission. Hello, Jean. Thanks for being here.
Hi, great to see you. Just a couple of things I'll mention, and then if there are any questions, I'm happy to take those. We've been, since the supplemental budget and all that it contained came through, we've been working on guidelines and application materials, that kind of thing, and getting that material out to districts. The comment periods for a lot of those are ending July 1st. I don't have visibility on who's given comment, but I feel certain that the staff of your district has already given us some great comments, and I look forward to seeing those along with all the rest. There's a discussion among district managers along with some commission staff on Friday, where folks can start to dig into if there are improvements to, for example, the salmon funding. I think there are a lot of questions outstanding on that, as well as I can never get the acronym right, but the tree growing program that Allison's working on. I think there are a lot of questions there as well. And I'm looking forward to seeing those conversations really given some time. And I think that the commission will really benefit from hearing more from those smart folks. So we're looking forward to that. That's on Friday. And I believe Sarah's going, which is great. A preview of coming attractions at the upcoming commission meeting, July 21st. One of the things that the commissioners will do is they will approve, prioritize, and set not to exceed limits for budget packages, which we will then develop for the soon upcoming regular session of the legislature. And in the past, TCD has been great at helping us develop those decision packages, those budget packages. And so wanted to sort of give you a heads up and hope that there would be some capacity to at least read drafts or provide comment or maybe add some little bits that were particularly relevant. You being Thurston County makes it a little extra important to make sure that our budget packages make sense to you and have good examples and metrics that are going to make sense to your legislators. So that's a preview of coming attractions. Are there any questions that I can answer? Anything you're wondering about, or
Dr. Helen?
None here.
I guess not.
okay. Well, you know how to reach me if something comes up.
Thank you
Thanks.
for being here. That moves us to the next reports, WACD, followed by NACD. Doug?
In the board packet were short reports for each one of those organizations. Since the report was filed, we had a meeting, we WACD Board of Directors, which they call the area directors, met up in Bow at the Plant Material Center on the 20th. And probably the biggest news out of that was that the annual meeting will be this fall, November 28th through the 30th, half a day on the front and half a day on the end in Wenatchee. We tossed that and Yakima up in the air, and Wenatchee came down first. That's not totally set in stone, but that's sure what it looks like. The 28th through the 30th of November in Wenatchee. We've met there before, but not for several years, and the agenda is being developed.
Okay, and Doug, am I correct that it's an in-person conference, but there will be options to attend virtually?
Yes. Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. I should have done that.
Sarah?
I just have a quick question for Doug. This is typically the time over the summer and into the next couple of months is the time for the board to discuss resolutions that they want to start putting into the WACD framework. The first stop is the Southwest Area meeting, which usually happens in late September, most often early October. And so the board will want to approve those at the latest by our September meeting, if there's any considerations to put forth resolutions to WACD. Guess that wasn't a question, that was a comment.
And it's an important comment.
It was useful. I'm the NACD resolution process and the WACD resolution processes don't quite mesh up, so I'm trying to get the WACD changed so I don't have to rewrite the resolutions when I take them to NACD, which shouldn't show up very much for our local ones or the ones at the area meetings.
Doug, based on what Sarah said, what would be your advice in terms of scheduling this discussion for our board? Should we try to do this in July, or would it be okay to put it into August?
I would go earlier rather than later because that gives you more of a pad to change your mind later on. And I'd say just have a kind of a scoping session, maybe for 10 or 15 minutes, with people bringing their ideas.
Okay, so let's go ahead and put that on our work session list of topics for July. And then if we need to follow up with action, we have the month of August to do that. Thanks, Doug. Okay, that concludes partner reports. And that moves us on to governance. First item here is the one we bumped from our work session earlier, which is our equipment rental program needs. We talked about this briefly last month. Betsy raised the question, and Sarah indicated that staff wanted to bring this back in a more holistic way and share some of their own thinking about this month. So here we are. Do you want to take point on this, Sarah?
Yeah, I'll start that conversation and share some of the types of equipment. Of course, there's a more exhaustive technical list of things, but I'll share a list of types of equipment that the staff have heard community feedback and a lot of community feedback about needing. One of the, there are two kind of big pieces of equipment that are of most interest from our community, and that is a no-till drill. Definitely through a lot of the sustainable farms and fields work and soil health building work. It's definitely a big ticket item that is in high demand. So that is one piece of equipment. We've got some feedback from the community about sizes and what might work best. Lewis Conservation District does have a piece of equipment, two different sizes that are still probably a bit large, maybe for Thurston, for a lot of Thurston County ag. So aiming to go a little bit smaller and be accessible to folks at the smaller end, while this partner equipment is available in Lewis, is something that we are looking to, and the Sustainable Farms and Fields funding that will be released from the commission in the coming months is a funding opportunity that we're looking at for application to add this regional equipment to. The second kind of high priority piece of equipment is a tractor and implements. There's a whole list of different types of implements for a tractor. One of the things that we have noticed is that a lot of folks need services done by tractors, but don't have them themselves. Or if they do end up purchasing a tractor, they don't necessarily have the implements. So being able to sort of plug and play and have a tractor, a smaller tractor, sufficient horsepower, but a smaller tractor that you can use on a variety of scales of property that can be used with a variety of implements would be ideal. Most folks have provided a lot of feedback around different types of haying equipment, harrowing equipment, that pasture preparation and harvesting type of equipment. That's been a lot of feedback, and a lot of folks that used to do community haying. They used to be the farm down the road that would hay for 6 or 7 different people during the growing season, just aren't doing that anymore. Either they don't have the equipment, they've moved on, or fuel prices are so high that they're just not doing it for others. And so folks, especially, I've really noticed a big pinch this year, don't have any way to cut their fields. They don't have any way to hay. So they're losing economic revenue there. And then they're not able to then, they're going to have to let that overgrow and fallow. And what are they going to do next year? So if they're looking at that quality hay production, you need to be able to cut that service. So that's another of the big pieces. In addition to that, we've heard things like a wood chipper for helping with fuel load reduction in forests and also providing mulch for plantings. That's a big, high priority one. We have heard, other feedback for more specialty use pieces, but I would say those are probably the largest ones that have been requested kind of across the community at this point. A turkey processing unit, a blueberry picker, a cider press for cider apples, so folks can make value-added products from their orchards, those pieces. But those are more on the harvest end of things. And the first list I mentioned has a lot of that conservation value and fits really nicely with our strategic plan. So that's a really concise wrap up of that list. I can send a more exhaustive, here's all of the different types of implements for tractors and things that the staff has captured and taken note of. But I'd love to give the board an opportunity to, if you have some feedback or thoughts or things that you're sharing with or hearing within your communities, so we can add those to the list.
But before that, I want to just clarify something, because you identified a number of needs. My question is, are these needs sort of anecdotal? We hear this from people, or have we ever done sort of a formal survey to ask folks what their needs are?
Yeah, most of it I would say is on the anecdotal end. We have started to, track numbers of individuals that we're hearing the same equipment needs from. So we're starting to be able to put numbers to it, but it is mostly coming from folks that are taking the initiative to share that with us in conversation, or as we're having conversation, we ask them about it. We do not have, or haven't in recent years, done a really big survey push to cooperators in our community, but I think that would be a great step.
Well, I do too, and I'd like to see it expanded beyond cooperators, because I think that tends to be oftentimes confused with producers. And I'm thinking in particular because we've been really sort of moving more towards the area and spending a lot of time talking about the role of urban communities and around food production, like we were talking about the city of Olympia, economic development, other things. And that might be a big chunk of the community just because we've never asked them. We don't really know what those needs are. So I'd be interested in looking, because some of the stuff that you mentioned, I mean, seems reasonable to me. I also know that tractors and implements are really expensive. And so if we're going to begin making additional investments in a rental program, I'd like to be really confident that we're getting highest and best use from the community. We're hearing what they say. So I don't know about the feasibility of doing something, before we have to adopt our 2023 budget. But I'd sure be interested in hearing whether or not that might be a possibility to do some sort of online survey before we have to make those budget decisions. So I'll stop there and go back to Sarah's comment and say, she asked us for suggestions. Helen, Doug, do you have ideas? Are you hearing things in terms of equipment needs?
Yeah, I'm the instigator of the wood chipper. I hear that, but I work in forestry, so those are the people I interact with a lot. I think another piece of information is kind of like what you were saying, TJ. Karen did that unmet needs group. And if we keep asking the same people the same questions, we're going to get the same answers. I think there's an untapped group out there that Karen has at least potentially or partially identified that would be good to find out what they need.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit, Doug? I'm not sure I know what you're talking about.
Karen gave a presentation on all the requests we get, and we're only able to, I don't remember the numbers. We can only respond to like 25 or 30% of them. And who are those other 50 or 60% that we can't really help because we don't have the staffing or the capacity? I talked to my counterparts in the Washington Forest Protection Association or WSU Extension and Forestry, and it's always the same people that show up to the same meetings, wearing the same coats, driving the same pickups. And there's got to be other people out there.
I think that's a really great point, Doug. And I don't want to misrepresent that feedback that it's, the usual cast of characters that are coming back to the district, back to the trough, asking for more things. It definitely is a wider cast net than that. But I think point well taken. Let's expand that reach into more of the urban community. You're right, that request for technical assistance, more individuals are requesting us our assistance in the southern part of our county, particularly the Chehalis Basin was astronomically, higher than any other basin within Thurston County. So it's a two-part thing. We can't discredit that because there's people there asking for our services that absolutely need help. And we need to make sure that we're engaging with the rest of our population as well, saying, we know what these needs are and we can move forward with that. But what do you need too, so we can move forward together? And maybe those are the same things and maybe they're different things. They have different needs in each community. So that would be great to know. We can definitely have some conversation about how we can survey or find this type of information from community members widespread that might have really different needs. And also probably really different dollar amounts attached to that too. Some of it will need to definitely go out for donation or competitive grant, like a no-till drill is going to be something that we'll probably need to have outside funding for. But there might be other things that we can help with smaller scale food processing, like our chicken processing unit and the additional upgrades we did for that just this last month with year-end commission funds. Thank you, commission. That can help urban food processors and community members as well.
It strikes me there's two other things. One is, I think politically it would be important to ask Ramiro Chavez or someone in the county who funded a lot of what we do, what they think. And then secondly, the group that Adam and Sarah and TJ are on, the farmland group, that'd be good group to ask. What do you think? This is what we're thinking. What do you think?
I think that's a good suggestion. I do like connecting with the county. Have they, Sarah, have they actually hired their agricultural liaison person yet, or is that in still process?
Still in process.
Yeah, that'd be a good person to make that.
Great.
And I was thinking in terms of if we can structure some sort of survey, our newsletter has pretty broad reach into a lot of different parts of our community. And that would be a great way to advertise a survey and get a broader cross section of the community to participate in helping. The only specific thing I throw into the mix here is I've been contacted a couple different times by folks that are I call them the biochar advocates. And they're very passionate about biochar, and they really are looking to the district to help. They'd like us to own and rent out a small scale biochar maker. So I don't know if any of you all have heard of these people. I've told these people, well, the way things get done in government is you have to keep telling people, and you got to tell a lot of different people. And so I encourage them to have these, in part because it's educational too. I learned a lot about biochar in talking to some of these folks. So I suggested they contact you, Sarah. They may have, and I suggested they contact other supervisors as well. But I told them that when this conversation was next had by the board, I would make sure to bring up biochar as an idea.
Yeah, that's one I overlooked. John Floyd in Pend Oreille is really, really into that. And it was big at one point in NACD, but that was like 15 years ago. But
they have a point. It's an interesting technology, but right now it's incredibly expensive and impractical at a small scale. So if we can fill a niche there, we ought to at least look into that potentially. Or ask people whether they think it's a niche we should fill. Okay, anything further on this topic at this time? Okay, thank y'all. We'll then move to item B under governance. This is a revised policy 1.2.1 on remote attendance, which we talked about a little last time. And we have a revised policy in front of us tonight for potential action. So we've all had a chance to look at this. I think the board packet had the strikeout and addition line. This looks like a clean copy here in front of us. but are there any comments or questions about this revised policy?
I guess my comment is I've read it. It seems to make sense to me. Yeah, I don't have anything to flag.
Doug?
I do have a suggestion or throw it out for board consideration and staff input. The first number one, I guess there's only one number one. A supervisor may attend a meeting via remote when the supervisor cannot attend in person or is not safe to do so. I'd like to see that expanded. What I'm thinking is a supervisor could attend virtually with notice to the chair and the executive director, because sometimes a personal workload or personal circumstances have to make a choice between, okay, I take care of a sick kid or I go to a board meeting. Well, I can go. I'd like to see it a little more loose and a little more flexible.
I guess the way I read it now is it says when the supervisor cannot attend in person. That's a pretty flexible statement. It's up, the supervisor's making the judgment call there. And personally, as a chair, I don't really want to get a call from someone that would then put me in a position of trying to judge whether or not they can or cannot attend. I think we're all professional enough here that I think the current language leaves it to the appropriate discretion of the supervisor based on personal circumstances.
Yeah, I didn't read it that way, but okay. I'd be happy with that then.
So you can live with the language as is, Doug?
Yeah, I want to make sure I understand that, okay, I've got a meeting at 9 o'clock tonight, so I would rather stay home and have this meeting, the TCD meeting, virtually, and then go to the other meeting later, something like that.
I'd say fine. You've made a responsible decision, and you're still participating in the TCD meeting. You're just doing it in a remote way.
Okay, I was reading too much into it, it looks like. Thanks.
Ellen?
Yeah, I see that I did flag one thing. It was just more of a question. It's number 4. No, is it number 4? Oh, it's number 3 now. During any meeting that a supervisor is attending via remote communication, the chair or presiding officer shall state for the record supervisors that are attending via remote communication. I'm wondering if we need that at all. It's who's attending is stated for the record at the beginning of the meeting. I don't know if it matters whether they're attending remotely or not, or what the purpose of number 3 is, why it would be necessary.
Yeah, that's a bit of a relic from the old policy. And now that we have seen, and when we started updating this, we were starting to see how we were implementing the legislature's new rules, but I don't think it's necessary in this day and age. I think it was then because it was more of an anomaly, but not now. So that's definitely, I left it in there just for the board's discretion. You can take it out or leave it. There's not any other reason that we need to have that included.
I'd be fine with striking it.
Ben, would you concur with what Sarah just said about not needing to have this in there?
Based on recent guidance, I think it doesn't need to be in there. I think there's good reason for it to be there because the manner in which interaction with attending members of the public is possible varies whether you're remote or not. And I think it is useful to know in the record of the meeting which supervisors could have had those interactions or not. So I also think that under different board leadership, Doug's concern about the use of the word cannot could make a big difference. So you might want to say when the supervisor come in there, I'm not sure, but when the supervisor reasonably determines that he or she is unable. And that states that it is discretionary with the supervisor, but supervisors are expected to act reasonably, which I think is what the intent is.
Yeah, I like your language on that, Ben. Thank you.
Just a bit of history. There was some meetings where I was told I could, in a previous board, that I could attend via the phone, and then later, no, you can't attend by the phone, you can't vote. So I'm a little paranoid, but not with you guys. I'm comfortable. But I think
Ben, sorry, I think Ben actually used the word reasonable. So supervisor reasonably determines.
Because I think there needs to be some oversight of the decision making, but I think that it doesn't need to be in an imperative form like cannot. So.
And on the other one, about what was it, number 3, the previous one, I was also going where Ben was going, thinking about the public on that. And so I do think leaving that in so that we have a record of who actually was physically there that the public could have interacted with is a useful thing to leave in.
Yeah, I don't object to it. It's just, I sort of feel like, I mean, I've been attending hybrid meetings with the planning commission, and there's really no, if you have good equipment, there's not as much of a barrier anymore. You can still interact with the public even if you're remote. I mean, it does make some difference, but the technology is getting pretty good.
I can see where you're going with this, Ben, and concerns about, OPMA as well. If there's a quorum of supervisors in the hallway having conversation about district business and those types of things. So yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Okay. Any other comments or questions on this revised policy? Or if not, I'd entertain a motion.
All right, I'll move that we adopt the amendments to the policy on remote attendance.
Okay, it's been moved by Helen. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second. Make sure I understand what you said, Helen. You're moving for approval of 1.2.1.
Correct.
The amendments. Okay.
1.2.1 as amended. Yep. Okay, it's been moved by Helen, seconded by Doug. Let's move to a vote on this policy. Helen?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We have approved that policy. That then moves us to the next item on our agenda. I believe it's C, which is 2022 staffing plan update.
Yeah, I wanted to just take a little time to have some conversation with the board about current staffing levels of the district. You saw in my report, I noted that with current funding, workload, and deliverables, it has become apparent that we need to increase our technical staff by 1 FTE in our farm planning and farm technical assistance department. I've been looking at funding, forecasting the amount of funding opportunities that are coming down the pike that have already been announced, the reasonable level of assurance that we'll get some sort of that funding, as well as kind of the forecast for the remainder of our grants, or those that we've been notified of renewals already. And we're going to have both the community demand and the funding sufficient to do increase beyond that 1 FT that is critically needed today. both in our habitat department and other natural resource assistance, in our education and outreach department. And then as we increase all of our funding and we increase all of our technical staff and our outreach staff, probably at least a half an FTE in our, finance and administration department to help support such an increased volume of work and of funding to help manage. I mentioned or alluded to earlier when I showed that budget graph and trajectory with that steep incline that I believe we're on track for another steep incline. That I think that is definitely true. So I just wanted to bring this conversation up to the board, let the board know that I plan to move forward as early as next week with a recruitment announcement to add to our farm planning team, because we have dollars and deliverables that we need to move forward. And we have funding for this to not just be a project position. These grants are multi-year into the future. And a lot of this really was solidified as we have gone through this mid-year budget updating process that you'll see in July. And I'm just sharing now that definitely in our 2023 budgeting process, you'll see likely additional FTE requests or proposals in our staffing plan for 2023. It is possible, depending on how much of the funding that Jean mentioned and from other funding sources, depending on how much of that we get in 2022, it may be critical to hire, at least in our habitat capacity and potentially in our outreach department, a little bit earlier in 2022 versus beginning in 2023. So that's, definitely a conversation that I'll make sure we continue to keep with the board. Right now, again, not thinking that these would be project positions or short-term or temporary positions, but actual permanent positions of the staff. So building that budget and trying to meet that community demand that Doug alluded to. We're serving, 45 or 50% of just the demand we have now. And we have several robust outreach initiatives planned later this year with a lot of partner projects where partners really are looking to TCD to be the solution and the answer. And we're going to definitely need to increase capacity if we're going to answer that call. So I just wanted to bring that up, have some conversation with the board, answer any questions or hear any feedback from folks.
Thanks, Sarah. So there you are. Questions or feedback from the board?
The commission and WACD went above and beyond the call of duty to get, I think it's $29 million for conservation district work across the state. And it's very, very crucial that we succeed in how we spend that, because some folks think that, okay, we'll give them this money and hope that they fail so we can do more enforcement or some other approach, that the incentive-based voluntary stuff doesn't work. So it's very, very important that we succeed and get the money spent on viable projects.
Our staff did a preliminary assessment of just the lowest hanging fruit riparian and salmon recovery projects without doing any outreach. And we have about $7 million worth of additional projects on top of already, $7 to $12 million worth of proposals that we're in the middle of developing. So it's the work is there. People are looking to TCD to be that answer. And we're looking at smart and strategic growth so that it can be sustainable into the future and try to meter that, but also move the dial on things that need to move and get conservation on the ground and demonstrate the power of voluntary stewardship.
Helen, do you have anything on this topic?
No, except that I just think it's really exciting. I mean, yeah, it's great.
I have a couple questions, Sarah. Based on what you said, for the remainder of 2022, assuming you move forward sooner rather than later on a hire, is it within our board-approved budget, or are you going to need the board to make any sort of budget modification for the remainder of this year?
Yeah, not for that initial one farm planning FTE. That's within the board approved budget. This would be dependent upon funding receipt, mostly from some of the funding sources that Jean has discussed and others that we would then get in and the board would approve those contracts. And we would just bring that back to the board to, here's a revised staffing plan and here's our thought process going forward. That is an area of that is a gray area in our policy where it does say that the charge to the executive director is to maintain appropriate staffing levels to administer district programs and strategic plan. It doesn't quite have that really nice tie to the budget and the staffing plan process that we've gone through, but that's been my practice, is that I've always come to the board, in full transparency, if it's anything outside of what the board approved budget is, and ask for that approval. So unless the board feels otherwise, that's the plan that I have going forward, is just to come back to the board when new money is received for approval of that money and then approval of adding those FTEs.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying, and I'm totally comfortable with that. I think it's good to put it on the record. The other question I had has to do with physical space in our existing facility. Do we have adequate office space to bring somebody in now? And at what you're looking at over the next year, do we have adequate space to continue to build our staff in our existing facility?
Yeah, it's getting tight in here. I will definitely say it's getting tight. One of the things that's in our favor right now is this hybrid work structure that we have. We do have more communal office space that is untapped at this point, that we can bring additional folks into. A conversation that we've had at the staff level too is the idea of more hot desk style office space or shared desks where folks can come in and use TCD infrastructure and desks at alternating schedules and things like that when it doesn't, when it works, when it makes sense. So most of the work that we're anticipating is, technical staff that's going to be doing field work and some planning. So they'll be in the field most of the time anyway. So yes, we do most immediately, but we are running out. We are running out.
It's been a while since I've been over there. Are we still leasing space to the Community Farmland Trust?
The Community Farmland Trust does still have a lease that's active, but they will be on their way out as the county is looking at converting this building complex into other pieces. I think they are looking to move, in particular, if we move in the future, certainly, but potentially sooner than that, depending on their needs.
Yeah, and the reason I bring that up is in the times that I've been over there, they have a pretty significantly sized space for at least from what I could tell, how often they use it and how few staff use it. So it sounds like that is potentially a short-term solution as we expand, but clearly we all understand that facility is inadequate for our long-term vision.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have not received any notice from the county about, their plans to take over our office space. But I know that is a conversation that we've been asking them and just checking in, that if there is a timeline at any point that they want to convert, kick us out for their own use, that we have ample notice so that we can, if that doesn't line up with our Conservation Education Center goals, that we have ample notice to find alternative office space for our staff.
That's good to know. Do we have anything in our existing lease with the county that defines what ample lead time is? That really, I guess I haven't looked at the lease, So are we comfortable that the existing language, if the county came to us, that the existing lease gives us enough time to actually do something if we need?
Yeah, the existing lease is through the end of next year, but this is something that we check in on routinely. So we're coming up on our next mid-year check-in with the county, and that's one of the things on the list is, have you heard any new information since we talked at the end of last year? Are there any plans? You know, we're interested in renewing this space, presumably, until we make this move to the Conservation Education Center, as long as it still meets our needs, right? As a growing staff, these are conversations that we'll need to assess with the board, you know, at the end of each year. But that is something that is coming down the pike. At the end of 2018, our lease does include a provision for extension and renewal without having to renegotiate a lease, which is what we typically, you know, have done in the past, is add that extension for an additional, you know, 1 to 5 years has been customary. When we've had less stable revenue, it's been shorter terms, but that's typically been the cycles that we've selected.
Thank you. I think it'd be useful as we have those conversations with the county and as we think about either a lease extension or a lease modification, if we're signing a new lease, to be really confident that we're giving ourselves as much power in that relationship as we can within the bounds of what the county will allow. And that maybe it's a good idea to really look, maybe we should have Ben look at that language pretty closely through that lens as we come into the next cycle before signing again.
Absolutely, definitely. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, thank you. All right, anything further on this? Okay, then that moves us to the last item under governance, which is our draft work session topic lists and agenda for July.
Great. Bear with me one moment. I will get that pulled up. Okay. Go. Oops. Apologies. We'll try that again. Great. All right, do you see the work session topic list? Great. Okay, so we have a couple of,
Before you go past the work session, we agreed to add a discussion of resolutions for WACD to that list. Anything else on that for folks, or on our draft board meeting agenda? You can scroll down to that.
Under partner reports for WACD and NACD, I'm going to be gone the previous about a week and a half, so I'm not sure I'll be able to get a written report. I could certainly do an oral report.
Then did I miss it in the work session, or should the year-end budget review be here?
Yeah, the mid-year working budget review should be here. Oops. And also the finance or the climate friendly banking.
Okay, anything further to this agenda? Okay, we will go with that as draft for now. We have multiple opportunities to look at again before it's final. With that, we come to the last item before our executive session, which is board and ED updates. I'll start with you, Helen. I'm seeing you shake your head. Nothing to report this month?
There really isn't. No, nothing too
Okay.
exciting going on out there.
Doug?
Nothing more than what I've already said.
And other than reiterating that we will be having one more meeting of the Olympia Farmland Group the first Tuesday of July, I guess that's next week, followed by our meeting with the Land Use and Environment Committee. So both of those will happen before our next board meeting, and I'll be able to give you more details at that point. That moves us to you, Sarah, ED report.
Yeah, I have one quick thing to follow up with the board on, and that is the idea of bringing back our board and staff summer picnic, which TJ graciously hosted last year. We had a great time. It was great to have some of our staff and board meet for the first time. And I anticipate that will be the same this year, or we'll re-meet folks. I did discuss with some of the staff so far an idea about dates for that meeting or that picnic, and wanted to just throw out there that so far August 24th is the highest contender. August 30th and 31st were also ideas that were thrown out. So looking at, the early evening, late afternoon time frame, I think last year we did like a 4 to 6 kind of a deal. Worked well. We did an outdoor something, potluck style. We were able to do a meet and greet and then have a social component afterwards. Again, TJ graciously hosted. Other supervisors might be interested as well. We could also look for community spaces, or also look to our staff to see if there's someone interested in hosting. Nothing came up from the staff level about ideas to host. So I just wanted to throw that back out to the board, see if any of those dates worked for those on the call. We have a couple staff that we haven't connected with yet, and a couple board members that are not present. Yeah, any reactions or anybody interested in have ideas about locations?
What days of the week are those that you identified, Sarah?
Yeah, 2 of them are Wednesdays, and one of them is a Tuesday. So the 24th and the 31st are Wednesdays, and the 30th is a Tuesday.
From my own personal perspective, Wednesdays are out. That's a CSA day for us, pickup day. So the 30th would be my preference.
Yeah, and I have planning commission meetings, and I'm not sure. It might be that the 24th is out for me for that reason.
There is also no reason that we can't look into September. We typically don't have, we typically have nice weather, through much of September too. And I'm happy to connect with our staff again, looking at the month of September as well.
I'm laughing as you say we typically have nice weather in September, because we also typically have nice weather in May. Yeah, I mean, we could certainly look into September. If the 30th is a date that did work with staff, and I'm not hearing any objections here from either Doug or Helen, and does work for me, maybe we could float that with Betsy and David. As far as location, as Sarah and I talked a little while about this, we would be happy to host it again here. But I also don't want to, always be the host of this thing. If other people, have other ideas, I'm totally open to that. But if people like coming here, we could certainly do that.
Well, I like going to your place, TJ. On the 24th, I'll be in Arizona. On the 30th, I'll be down in Portland. And then sometime really early in September works better for me personally. That's only one person. And then the Pacific Region meeting starts on the 8th of September through the weekend.
Well, it sounds like maybe if we want to expedite this decision-making process and not have it drag on another month, maybe Sarah, you could identify potentially additional dates, a couple in September, and then yet another doodle poll for the board where we could get something nailed down sooner rather than later.
Sounds great.
Okay. Anything else on your report, Sarah?
That is it. Thank you.
Okay. Well, with that, then we've come to item 8 on our agenda, which is an executive session to discuss potential litigation with our legal counsel. RCW 42.30.110I allows for this executive session. So the intention here is our executive director, all 3 members of the board, and our legal counsel will move into an executive session here that will last no more than 10 minutes. At the conclusion of that executive session, we will come back into this public meeting for a report out, and then we will adjourn the public meeting at that point. So with that, as soon as we have the option to move to the breakout room, let's do that, and we'll be back in 10 minutes. Okay, we've got everybody back on this side now. Sarah, are you here? I don't have Sarah yet. There you are. Are we going to have Leah joining us for this last piece?
Yeah, she's here. Oh, I had the redo of the technology, but
Okay.
yep, we're all here now.
All right, everybody's here. Okay, so we meaning the board, our legal counsel and our executive director just completed an executive session to discuss potential litigation. We received an update, asked questions, and provided feedback. No decisions were made. With that, we are now at the point where we can adjourn our monthly board meeting if I have a motion to do so.
I move to adjourn the board meeting.
Moved by Helen. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Doug. Okay, let's vote. On adjourning our meeting, Helen,
Aye.
Doug.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. For the record, it is 7:48 p.m. and we are adjourned. Thank you all, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Productive meeting. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.